Goes again, he hits it hard, he hits it, he's got it up for a 6, you bet he has. Test 100, number 19 for Ross Taylor.
Nervous 90s? No way. Or
surmising here, we're only speculating. We're not 100% sure, so we will wait on final confirmation of what has happened to Ross Taylor, but from that moment on...
Good at it. 248 Taylor. And that'll be 250. The New Zealander is certainly back in form.
Hi everybody, and welcome to Shaky's Sports Journeys. Big guest today. Normally I would say from the other side of the world, New Zealand, but he's actually just managed to safely fly into the Caribbean for the Premier League out there. Welcome, I say, to Ross Taylor.
Kez, how are you, mate? Thanks for having me.
I'm very well, thank you. I'm very well, thank you. Pleasure to have you with us. It's been a bit of a strange time. I know in New Zealand you get back to normal a little bit quicker than the rest of the world, but how's it been in general?
Yeah, I mean, obviously this COVID's come on pretty quickly and strange times for everybody, but you know, we went into lockdown very quickly and I think it was a success. But unfortunately, in the last few days, we've had a few more cases in New Zealand, and when you're over the other side of the world, you feel a bit helpless, you know, not being able to contribute or help out the family from this side. But hopefully, it's not so bad, and you know, everyone around the world are dealing with similar things. So you know, hopefully, it's not around for too long.
Yeah. Just before we continue, I forgot there, I need to give a shout out. I'm rocking a new t-shirt today. It says Shaky Sports Journeys. I've also got the old Black Lives Matter on the sleeve, and I'd like to give a shout out to my good friend Rennie Keith from PSL Team Sports, who kindly donated me this t-shirt. So I wanted to get that in there as well. Look, it must have been a great time for you though, bro, because you've got three lovely children. You travel the world constantly. So it must have been really, really nice to get some time at home with them.
Yeah, it was fantastic. It was the longest I've ever spent at home, especially in my professional career. So it was nice to, you know, I suppose reconnect with the kids and just do normal things where when you are at home, I was actually able to unpack my bags for the first time. You know, I just live out of a suitcase. Even if I'm home for a couple of weeks, I don't normally unpack. But the weather at home was pretty good. So it was nice to, you know, we were able to walk around and get out of your place where I think, you know, parts of Europe you were housebound. So
yeah.
No, it was really good, and yeah, something I suppose at this time of your career you need to play, but it's you know, I guess to keep your muscles going, but at the same time it was really good to I guess keep the mind fresh and I guess willing to hopefully go further on in my career in years to come.
No, brilliant. So, for the viewers, I'm sure you all know who this man is, Ross Taylor, former New Zealand cricket captain, New Zealand Test, ODI, T20 legend. Just some of the teams that you played for: Central Stags, Delhi Daredevils in the IPL, Durham, Jamaica, Middlesex, Rajasthan Royals, Royal Challengers Bangalore. I could name a few more, but I think you get the gist of what I'm saying. You were born 8th of March 1984. You've got a fellow 84 man here as well. You're a couple of months older than me in October. Tell me about your childhood, your family background, and where did you grow up and what it was like growing up?
Yeah, well, I suppose a lot of people, unless they look at like Cricket Info or, you know, when I'm batting, my first name is actually Luteru. I'm proud. I'm part Samoan. My mother's from Samoa and my dad's a Kiwi. My dad played cricket growing up, so that's where I got the cricketing gene from. But yeah, when I was 5 years old, I went to school, met the principal with my mother and my grandmother, and the principal couldn't pronounce my name, Luteru. So my grandmother said, just call him Ross. And yeah, I've been called Ross Taylor ever since. But yeah, I suppose I don't know any different, but it would be a little bit strange if I was called Luteru Taylor. But it is what it is. And yeah, I'm sure if we were to do this now, I think New Zealand's come a long way since the 80s when I went to school. You know, I think I would be called Luteru if...
yeah, because when you think about it, a lot of sports people now in New Zealand are from, you know, I don't know enough about the makeup of it, but there's obviously in the rugby, I think there's more than there is in the cricket side of things. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, rugby and rugby league. I guess the people from the Pacific are generally quite big, and can really use their size to their advantage in rugby and rugby league. And I'm sure not only in New Zealand and Australia, but there's a lot of Polynesians playing in obviously the Super League in the UK and rugby. All over Scotland, Wales. In the UK, Ireland, there's a lot of Polynesians, playing rugby and rugby league.
So you think obviously you've touched on there the fact that the principal struggled to pronounce your name. Did you face any kind of growing up initially, early days, like you say, back in the 80s? Was it a little bit, was it maybe a little bit of discrimination back then, or and times have changed as the years have gone on?
I don't know. I suppose as a kid, you just it is what I just got on with it. I didn't see myself as any different. My mother obviously had a bit of colour, and my dad was white, so I didn't see any of that. And I mean, I interacted with both sides of family, but yeah, I don't think you just go out there to play sport and turn up to school to eat your lunch. But apart from that, I didn't feel like I was any different.
Well, that's good. I mean, you look at New Zealand now as a country. I mean, they're like you're like a benchmark for the way that I would like to see the rest of the world go. I mean, you've got an amazing Prime Minister, and you're such a loving country. It's so diverse, and I think it's great for any sports people coming up in New Zealand. It must be really good opportunities for everybody. You look at South Africa and some of these other countries. There's still a lot of political stuff that goes on, but New Zealand certainly doesn't strike me as that kind of country.
Yeah, I think it's like anything. I think we're a very multicultural, diverse nation, and you can see that in our sports teams as well. I think you go through our cricket team. I think we played a test match in the UAE against Pakistan, and out of the starting 11, 6 of them were born out of New Zealand. So that's the way New Zealand is. It's there's a lot of immigration, and I suppose it's nice for a lot of people to want to come and live in our country. But in saying that, in years to come, I'm sure it's going to be even more prevalent, and I guess add to New Zealand as a nation.
No, brilliant. So tell me, childhood. When was it bat in the hand from a very young age?
Yeah, as I said, my dad played cricket, so I used to turn up and watch him. And I was quite a small kid growing up. Most New Zealand kids want to, play for the All Blacks. I was a bit smaller, so I wanted to, play for the Blackcaps or the New Zealand cricket team. I was 5 years old when I started. 92 World Cup was probably, I think, it was a massive deal. New Zealand played really well, made the semi-final, and I suppose that was a catalyst for me to try and, hopefully one day play for New Zealand. Did I realistically think I could do it? Probably not, but the dream was there right from a young age, and obviously I'm here to tell my story.
Yeah, that same Roscoe 92 World Cup. Obviously, I've got some Pakistani blood in me. I was on. What a memory! But the amount of people that talk about the '92 World Cup it was like a really special World Cup. It just had a bit of everything in it. And you boys played it. I mean, Martin Crowe's the guy that I remember really well from back then. What a player for New Zealand! And it was a great game against Pakistan in the semi-final. But thankfully, Enzamamo Haq turned up and played the knock of his life to take us to the final. But I think it was written in the stars that Imran Khan was going to lead Pakistan to triumph in that World Cup. But it's amazing to hear you say that was kind of your first memory of start to get into cricket. So where did you then go? What was the kind of early representative? What club did you play for? Where you were growing up from, and when did you start getting into representative stuff?
Yeah, so I started playing when I was 5, and I turned up my first team. We had training, and then we turned up, and none of my teammates turned up. We didn't have a team, so I ended up playing with older kids And that was almost the what it was growing up in a small rural town in New Zealand. I was always playing with kids older than me, and I'm pretty confident that was a big part of my learning and making me a better player, playing with kids older than me from a young age, and having to, I guess, deal with the failures that come with that, but at the same time wanting to get better and learn off them. I played hockey as well. I started playing hockey at 8, so that's probably where those leg side shots come from. Blame my hockey, but my first representative, I played for Central District's age group when I was 12, and then just went right through the age groups. Started off as an off spinner, batted at 10, and by the end of the tournament, I was still bowling, but I ended up batting at 5. So it was always liked batting better than bowling, and I guess I'm glad that I got a couple of Test wickets, but batting was always my first love.
No, absolutely. So, who would you have played for then? You know, in the you were what was it? Stags? Is that the setup you came through in?
Yeah. So Central Districts or the Stags, that's the first class team, I guess.
Yep.
There's Central Districts is a strange union in New Zealand, and the fact that there's 8 provinces, but it's 6 provinces are in the North Island. It skips Wellington, and then it takes in the top of the South Island. So, you know, geographically we're very tough to assemble, but I think at the same time that plays in our favour. We get on really well as a team. We spend a lot more time than other teams do, but that, as I said before, I think that probably plays in our favour, and we get on really well, and that contributes into I think a very good team dynamic and camaraderie.
New Zealand under-19 World Cup in New Zealand. I believe you were captain. Am I right in saying?
Yeah, it was 17. It was in New Zealand.
Yeah,
so
you were very young. I was going to say, because I went to the same World Cup as a 17-year-old. So you were a very young captain there. They must have, you know, that's impressive.
Yeah, it was. I guess that came with added responsibility in New Zealand. We had a lot of guys who went on to play for some first-class cricket for New Zealand, and a few of us, you know, went on to play international cricket as well. But no, it was a fantastic, I guess, experience, and being able to represent your country in New Zealand. But it was quite funny at the time. I think a lot of guys probably rather it had been overseas, but at the same time, I think it was nice for us to have our family and friends there to support us. Where, you know, theoretically at that age, there wouldn't have been many parents I would have thought they would have travelled overseas to come and watch.
How did you? My memory. I mean, we went home pretty early, mate. We played the Windies in Australia, and we beat Kenya, but we got thumped by the Aussies in the West Indies, and we went into the plate, and then we headed off. How did New Zealand? If you remind me, how did you guys do?
We got knocked out in the Super 8s.
Okay.
I think it was South Africa, and it was a South Africa Australia final, and we had them. We had them in our pool, so we had a close game against South Africa, and probably should have won, but I think, you know, at the end of the day, the Cameron White led Australia team were just far too good for everybody else, and I think probably, you know, deserved to win, and a lot of those guys did go on to higher levels, as did the South African team and a few others from obviously other nations as well.
So just before we move on, who were the boys in your team that went on to play international? Rob
Nicol, Neil Broom, Michael Bates played a few games for New Zealand, but there's quite a few guys. There's probably a few that I'm missing off the top of my head. Or Jesse Ryder, obviously played a lot of games for New Zealand. But no, it was a good side, and you know, a few guys. You know, obviously, I think majority of them, if not only one or two, probably never went on to represent their province.
As a 17-year-old, just before we go on, though, as a 17-year-old, that's a lot of responsibility especially when you're captaining guys that are older than you. It's different when you're in a senior team, but when you're in a junior team, that age barrier is quite big. I mean, I remember going to that World Cup. I was the same age as you were, and I was a baby, like one of the babies of the team. Did you have the respect of your peers there then?
Yeah, I think what made it easier, I played in the New Zealand under-19 team the year before when I was 16. So I think that, I guess there was there was a bit of respect that I'd played for the team beforehand, and it almost been a succession plan from New Zealand cricket. I was vice captain at 16 under Brendan McCullum on the sort of provision that, you know, all going well and all things being equal, that I would captain the team, you know, in a year's time.
Yeah, no, brilliant. Okay, so before we go into your launch into the, you know, the big numbers and the amazing things you've done in your career to date, I want to touch on a time where how we came across each other, and I want to start in a really nice piece, because I remember the first day I arrived at the MCC Young Cricketers, 17 years old, just come back from the World Cup, feeling quite nervous, you know, away from home. And the first guy that approached me was your good self. You came up to me, you know, straight away, and you said to me, look, I know this is probably a big change for you. You're moving away from home. Look, my door's only a couple of doors down. You're always welcome to pop in. And I just think at the time, as a bit of a cheeky upstart 17-year-old, I didn't quite appreciate what you actually said to me there. But years down the line, you really do look back and remember, you know, that you were a top bloke. You were rooming with a lad called Brooke. I'm pretty sure it was a lad called Brooke.
Yeah, he was my roommate. He was in the under-19 team with me. He went over to play club cricket, and when New Zealand Cricket give a scholarship every year, I think they've only just started bringing it back in the last couple of years. When I found out that I was going over and he was going to stay in the same hostel at Old High On, he said, you know, should we room together? So I'd been to boarding school for a couple of years, so being away from home didn't really.
Right, okay, I get that now. You were used to it.
So it wasn't as daunting, I don't think, for me. I think it was more daunting, or maybe being a bit more naive, going from a town of 20,000 to a population of, you know, whatever London is, 7, 10, 12 million people.
Yeah.
But I was just, you know, I wanted to pursue cricket as a living, and you know, that was at the time the best way, and for me to, I guess, learn my craft. But I don't remember that. I think my memory is normally good, but
well, listen, you've
nice.
you've met a lot of people since then, and I'm sure you've had many good conversations like that along the way. So that, you know, it's a long time ago. Before I go into the cricket side of things, I want to let the viewers know of a funny memory I've got with you. So we'd been in the hostel for maybe 4 months, 5 months. I was by now pretty comfortable in my surroundings, getting up to a bit of no good, and, you know, just annoying people in general, to be honest. I was quite annoying when I was that age. And I decided to do something that really I shouldn't have taken on. So you had popped out your room for a second, and if you remember right, there was a big lad, I can't even remember his name now. He was the door across from me, and I went to him and I said, I'm going to play a prank on Roscoe here. And you had left the room.
Danny
O'Brien. And I put some water on your mattress. That was the biggest mistake. That was the biggest mistake I've ever made in my life, because about 5 minutes later, there was this Samoan topless lad banging on my door. I opened the door. Thankfully, you didn't fill me in. You didn't beat me up, and it was just a look of terror. I got given a look like, you do anything like that again, and I was like, hands up in the air. I'm sorry, Roscoe. I'm sorry. But you know, the memory of. I also remember one day in the changing room, you did the haka, and bloody hell, you had the whole changing room a little bit on edge. I mean, you brought the fire with that haka. But what I remember initially was, when you first came over, you struggled a wee bit on the old English conditions. I mean, in the second 11 trophy and stuff like that we were playing in, nobody early doors got to see exactly what you were capable of. What's your memory of that?
Yeah, I think probably something that I'll never forget was in June. Clive Radley, our coach at the time, he said, Kiwi, you know, I'd been struggling, and I don't know if this was a good excuse for him to just let me out of the team, but he said that there was an MCC tour to Croatia, Slovenia and Austria leaving on Tuesday. This was a Monday.
Yep.
He said it's a sea tour. A guy broke his thumb. He bowls off spin and bats a little bit right-handed. So would you like to go over there? So here I am, this naive Kiwi, never really seen the world, end up going to play cricket in Croatia, Slovenia and Austria. And I think that was probably the best thing for me. I guess the wickets flattened up a little bit, but I think it was nice to just let my hair down a little bit and not put as much pressure on myself because, I think if I was, to be honest, I think my top score up until about June would have been no more than 60 odd. The ball obviously moving around a little bit, being pretty raw and wanting to play that attacking game. But, learning over time that, you can't play that the way you do in New Zealand the whole time. So, no, I definitely do remember that. And just playing with the Duke ball, I think, was something that was so different to what I experienced playing with the Kookaburra back home in New Zealand.
Yeah. I mean, we had a good team. There was a good squad there. Obviously, one of my previous guests was there with us as well, Darren Sammy, who'd obviously just come back from the Under-19 World Cup as well. We've all seen what he's went on to do. There was a lot of good players in that squad. I remember a game, I think it was Bucks we played, and that was like the first time that I started realising this guy, Ross Taylor, is a serious player. We were playing in a game, and you got that mid-wicket, your trademark, over mid-wicket for 6, and it wasn't just going for 6 that day, it was going miles back. You got 100 and about, I think it was like 50 odd balls. And that kind of really, everybody I remember sitting that day and were just like, whoa, Kiwi, this guy's dangerous. But I guess you all need to learn your trade, and you were coming from probably very different conditions to the English. I probably knew the English conditions better than you at that point, coming from Scotland, used to playing in the damp conditions. But what would you say? And was that a great learning for you to go on and be a professional cricketer?
Oh, 100%. I think not only the conditions, I think just being able to play day in, day out. Back home, you just play on the weekend, train during the week, and I guess your main events, your Saturday and Sunday. Every now and then you would play some representative cricket. But, playing day in, day out, I didn't actually play club cricket. So my weekends were free. We had the odd Sunday game, but more often than not, you would play, Monday to Friday, work at Lords for the Test match in 1 days, and I guess just living the dream. I can't think of a better job than at 18 years old turning up to Lords, catching the 45, I think at the time, down, going and putting on your suit and tie, and it's a lot different to what you're used to as a Kiwi, but something that definitely prepared me in a good way for something that I wanted to do. And if anything, I think fast-tracked me into, earning a right. I hadn't played first-class cricket then, but, getting back from there, playing twos to go and experiencing first-class cricket in New Zealand. I guess the green seamers in New Zealand, still do a lot, but it's not quite the same as a green seamer with Duke balls. Yeah.
So you went back, you got started in first-class cricket pretty much as soon as you got back?
Yeah, it was an interesting time in New Zealand cricket because we had just had a strike. It was our first time. Cricket at domestic level was still probably semi-professional to amateur, but it was a big strike, and I was, as an 18-year-old, was a little bit different. There's obviously we're on strike. The season might be called off, and then all the boards were playing each other off, saying, "Well, we're not going to pick people who are reneging," but everything sorted itself out. I didn't start the season, but by Christmas, I played a few 1 days and I finished off the season playing first class cricket. So, a big part of that was, definitely my learnings at the MCC and I guess a little bit of the World Cup as well.
You must have hit the ground pretty well running because you made your New Zealand debut. 1st of March 2006. Take your memory back now. I'm going to test your memory because the next couple of questions, a good amount of questions here, are going to be right back. I'm sure you haven't forgotten your debut though. It was against the West Indies, and you scored 15. So at least you didn't have a golden duck or anything on your debut. And New Zealand won the game. What's your memory of that day?
Yeah, it was. I got a call about 3 days before that. I was the top run scorer in the one-day competition in New Zealand, and I was at a UB40 concert with Jeff Barnett, who played for Central Districts and Canada, and my wife or girlfriend at the time, and Min Patel, he was Kent legend, and we're at a UB40 concert, and I was too busy dancing away to Red Wine, and I missed the phone call from Sir Richard Hadley to tell me that I'd made the New Zealand team. It wasn't until after the concert that I realised it. So that was pretty cool, flying into play at Napier, which is our Central District's home ground, and only a couple of hours away from home. So, it was nice to have a lot of family and friends come and watch your first game. I was batting at 4, I think, and I can remember being pretty nervous the whole time. And I think Nathan Astle and Lou Vincent went on to get 100. So I had to wait till about the 42nd over to even get a bat.
Okay.
I can remember blocking my first ball and thinking what you thought. At least I can say I didn't get a golden duck. I was pretty relieved. And I can remember, I think I hit Dwayne Smith down to mid-on for 1. And my first international run, and something I'll never forget.
No, well, we're going to go on to talk about many more of them, because you've scored a fair few since then. December 2006, so only within about 6 months of making your debut, you scored your maiden ODI century in front of a delighted Napier crowd. Again, home kind of, must have been a lovely feeling. Must have had a few family and friends in to see that 100. Yeah,
there was a few, and if anything, you go back to my first game, because I was so nervous, I was going to the toilet all the time. I waited 40 overs where, in that game, I was in early doors, and I was pretty dehydrated to start off with. I was pretty nervous. I'd only had a couple of Weet-Bix at about 7:30. It was 11 o'clock start. So I'd had 2 Weet-Bix, not much drink or water the whole day, and then come about 2:30, 2:15, 2:45, I was cramping up, getting my first 100, and I didn't even field in that game because I was so dehydrated and I needed to go on a drip. So that was a little bit embarrassing, and probably learnt a lot, not necessarily from batting, but also the other sides of nutrition and hydration and things, which I probably learned the hard way that day. Yeah.
No, so for anybody listening, rehydrate yourself beforehand. I like the Weet-Bix. The Weet-Bix was good, but I don't think that's what the problem was. I think it was the fluids.
Yeah, well, I think it's more you have 2 Weet-Bix and you got nothing. There was no food in between. You still got a snack, and I guess nutrition has come a long way since I first started, and the technology, the tablets, the squeezies, the protein bars, and protein shakes and things were sort of just coming in when I was starting there, or maybe we were just a little bit behind everybody else. But it's funny to look back on it. Well, I guess those little mistakes that you made, which touch wood, you wouldn't make now.
Yeah. You go on. Now this must have been quite a big knock for you. You're playing in the Commonwealth Bank Series against Australia. Not too long after that, you made an 84 vs Australia. Now, growing up, I'm assuming that was kind of like your benchmark. You want to do it for a Kiwi. It must be like you want to do well against the Aussies.
Oh, 100%. I think knocking that first 100 off made me believe that I deserved to be there and could succeed. But it wasn't until you travel overseas, and that was my first game overseas. So
where was that? Sorry, where was that game again? Where was the game?
That was in Tasmania. So once again, I was a little bit nervous. I didn't eat and hydrate probably as much as I should have as well. But that was one of the best I batted, I think. 80-odd against a good Australian lineup, and we're chasing 300. But yes, definitely as a kid, watching Australian cricket was, you just grew up watching it. It was at a good time zone. Obviously, all the greats, and one of my favourite players growing up was Mark Waugh. So it was nice to go over there and succeed and know, I'm actually not too bad. I probably could give this a good go.
Yeah, no, but when you do something like that, I'd imagine against a team like that, it gives you so much confidence. It was kind of around, or not too long after that you started forming a partnership with not a bad player either, in Kane Williamson, kind of number 3 And you know, for New Zealand now, for as long as I can remember, it's Williamson at 3, Taylor at 4. You know, how's that been for you? You must have helped each other, you know, through your careers.
Yeah, well, it's funny you say that. I was McCallum and Vittori were taking a break, so I captained Kane's first one-day game. Okay. And I thought, you know, he was only 20, and I'd be batting at 4, and I thought I can't let a 20-year-old go and bat at number 3.
Yeah,
it's not fair. So we actually swapped over. He batted at 4, I batted at 2.
Right, okay.
So in his first game, and I think he got a duck. So that wasn't. Maybe I should have kept him at 3. But no, I think he's turned out to be a fantastic player. We all knew he was going to be a very good player. But the way he's just continued to set the benchmark for New Zealand and the world has been fantastic. And we can't often say in New Zealand that we have genuine world class players, but he's been great, and I've really enjoyed learning off him and batting with him. But at the same time, you know, I think we complement each other really well, and we've got I guess 3 and 4. I think a lot of the Indians quite often the fans remind you of how of what the records are, and a lot of them are Kane Williamson fans. So, you know, there's a stat that came up the other day. I think Sharma and Kohli had 2,300 run stands, and Kane and I had 2,300 run stands. So no, we definitely enjoy batting together, and hopefully over the coming years, and I'm still good enough and fit enough to be there that we can add to that challenge.
No, you both. I mean, you're unbelievable servants for New Zealand cricket. I actually got the pleasure at the other side of the world in Whangarei, where I met you many years ago as well. Andy Moles was a coach at ND, so I'd come over to meet Andy Moles, and I got to have a quick chat with you. But both you and Kane got 50s that day. It was just a pleasure to sit and watch both of you bat, and what you've gone on to do is incredible. Another century, again, and this one must have been again a very proud moment. 18th of February 2007 against the Aussies, 117 you knocked. You know what? You know that must have been a great feeling as well.
Yeah, I think once again it was. I think we chased down 230 or 240 that day, so it was a record chase at the time, and once again, you know, playing against. I forgot to mention it. Probably one of the best things about that Tasmania knock was, you know, some of the guys that you grow up watching. You know, Hayden and Gilchrist and Simons and Clark and Ponting, and them sledging you. I think that was one of my highlights of the game. And then it was no different. You know, the next game, and Sean Tate coming in and buying 159 clicks, and McGrath and Watson. It was, I don't know, sort of, you know, thinking a bit about it then. I didn't know what I was doing, but it was a hell of an enjoyable run, and it was nice to win our Chapel Hadley series and take it 2-0.
No, but you were never. I'd imagine you would have handled yourself pretty well, because from what I remember of you, you're a pretty tough bloke. Actually, it's quite funny recently. You and Tim Payne had a bit of banter. We'll get on to talk about that knock, but you know, you hear it quite well on the stump mic, and I think you give him a couple of lines back. He gives you a couple, but you're always one to be able to take it and dish it back.
I don't normally dish it up, but I don't know. Depends on the game situation and your mood, whether you've had a good or bad sleep that night, I guess.
You then went on and you launched yourself into Test cricket, March 2008 at lovely Hamilton against the Poms, against the English. You scored your maiden Test century. Again, must have been a special moment, and to get to score both your first hundreds in both formats in New Zealand must have been just such a special feeling.
Yeah, I think that was, you talk about my first 100. I think I was very fortunate to get my first 100 in my third ODI and then my third Test match. I think that international cricket's a massive thing is believing you should be there, and I think that's where I got my belief after that innings that I didn't want to just be a white ball player. 2020 cricket had sort of just started to come in. I still wanted to make a name for myself in Test cricket. I had, my average in first class cricket was okay, but it wasn't. It was probably high 30s, but it wasn't fantastic. So you know, to get it against once again those first few years of international cricket, you played against guys you watched, so that was always a little bit strange. You know, Harmison, Hoggard, you know, all these people who, you know, had amazing careers, and you know, the Ashes of 2005 was still sort of in my mind. But
so was Flintoff,
Big
Freddie Flintoff, would he have been bowling at you as well then?
Yeah, I think he was injured. I think we had played against him in the one days, but I hadn't played against him. I think he must have got injured or something, because he didn't. I don't think he played in the Test match. But I think the all rounder was Collingwood. So Collingwood and Panesar. But yeah, it was probably one of the things I do remember about that series was the Barmy Army. Actually, the Barmy Army. I don't know if it's because the Pounders got so weak and it's not as good to come out to New Zealand and whatnot. But you know, the Barmy Army they made that series, and it was something I'll never forget the 100. But the way that the Barmy Army, the way they sung their songs, I think I knew their songs fluently by the end of it. And then when we came to England that winter for us, but obviously summer it was nice to, you know, when we're playing at some of the warm-up games, some of those songs are being sung by the members in some of the warm-up grounds, which is quite fun.
Well, look, so I think looking at your career there, you said you hadn't scored very many in first class. Do you think the fact that you got 100 early doors in ODI cricket made the selectors think we need to have a look at this guy in Test cricket as well?
Yeah, I think it was definitely my rate of international one-day runs that gave me the opportunity to play Test cricket. It wasn't like I was probably thereabouts in first class as being like the next cab off the rank, but I don't think it was like I wasn't averaging 45 or 50 to deserve my spot. I think I was definitely picked on potential more so than weight of runs.
Must be a good feeling though to get a couple, like you said, a couple of tons early doors there. You know, some guys, you know, by the time you get to 7, 8, 9, 10 international innings, especially at the top level, questions are going to start getting asked. But to get a couple of tons early doors, that probably cemented you. Not that that's the way you never settled for that, but it must have just gave you the confidence, gave you the boost, and from there you've just launched on. Yeah,
I think so. And the only problem with that, the end of that series against England, we won the first test, and then we lost the next two. But Fleming retired, and we had quite a few senior players, especially batters, retire. So by the time we'd finished that series and went back to England, IPL started in between then, and then we went to England. I'd gone from, I guess, a rookie in the team to being one of the senior batsmen in the space of 3 test matches, or 5 test matches, I suppose, at that time. So that was a learning curve. I went up to 4, where I batted a lot of time at 5, and had to learn quick. And you know, the baptism of fire. You know, facing that was when England was sort of changing their guard. In terms of, you know, Broad and Anderson were coming in, and Harmison and Hoggard were sort of getting pushed to the side. So once again, I guess that first test at Lords, to go back to the home of cricket, and you know, my first day of the test, when I was on the MCC, and they told me to go and see the Donkey Derby. I wasn't fortunate enough to go and watch the Donkey Derby at the Grey Skates for the first test, but it was definitely something that I'll never forget. And if anything, I was probably a bit overawed by, I guess, the place in itself, but obviously being there as an MCC young cricketer as well. Yeah.
Did you meet good old Clive Bradley while you were over, while you played that test?
I think every time I play a test match, Rads and I do something for Sky every time we play there. So he's probably sick of it. They could just play the one from 2008 or 2013 or 15 or whatever it was. Yeah. So no, it's always good, and I've been fortunate enough to play for a lot of counties as well, and played at Middlesex last year, and it was nice to go back and You know, when you're with the young cricketers, you obviously always train or either side of the international teams, but also Middlesex. So it was nice to tick that off the list as well, to play at Lords as a YC and international cricketer, but as a local domestic player for Middlesex as well.
No, brilliant. You went on then and scored a nice big century at Old Trafford, lovely Manchester, 154, May 2008. Must have been a nice feeling.
Yeah, I think probably to date still one of my best innings in any format. I think it was doing quite a bit, and you know, Manchester wicket goes the other way now, but I'll never forget it, and the fact that Daniel Flynn, one of our, I think he was batting 5 or 6 at the time, playing in his first Test series, and I'll never forget that he got his face caved in by Anderson. So for you know a good part of that innings, you were batting with blood around the crease, which was the second time I'd had to do that. But no, it wasn't a great time to be there. But if anything, you know, made you watch the ball a lot harder and things like that. But no, it was definitely one of the best innings I've played to date, I feel.
No, it's you like a big 100 because you go on and get your third Test century. And what I like about when I'm looking at your career, Roscoe, and looking at, you know, all the amazing things you've done, you know, some people do really well against one or two teams. It's the way that you hold a record. We'll talk about that in a second. But you've scored runs against all teams. Is that something you set out specifically, that you wanted to be a guy that scored runs against all countries?
I think, I suppose we're going to different stories, but when I was growing up, there's a saying over here in New Zealand, you don't want to be an All Black, you want to be a great All Black. And that was something that my dad instilled. You know, he said, if you ever play for New Zealand, don't just represent New Zealand, be a great player. So that was always in the back of my mind, to try and be as best as I could. And if I did become a good player, to try and be as great a player as I could possibly be, and don't just settle for, you know, being a good New Zealand player. So, you know, that was my goal. And I suppose you don't get hundreds very often. So when you do get them, you got to make the most, and I guess never be satisfied to go on and I guess make it a big 100 or a daddy 100, as they like to say in the UK.
Yeah. So 151 again. You like batting at Napier against India. You scored a nice 150 to follow up the 154 at Old Trafford. Is Napier a ground that you really love batting at?
Yeah, well, it's a nice hard bouncy wicket, and the square boundaries are very short, so it's very easy to get a bit carried away and hit square. But if I remember that day, we won the toss and batted first, and we were 3 for 20. So not the greatest decision, but then Jesse Ryder and I got a good partnership together, and Jesse got his first 200. And you know, I grew up with Jesse, and you know, I thought he batted fantastically well that game. Once again, we probably didn't get the right result we would have liked, but Gambier saved the test for Gambier and Laxman saved the test for India, and I think Gambier got 120 off 460 balls. To have that discipline to bat that long and to be, it wasn't until the game was safe that he actually started playing a few shots. So I could only dream about batting that many balls. But he did fantastic.
How much can you chuck somebody to try and make a mistake? By the time he's faced about 250 balls, you probably just gave up. Like, there's no point in this guy.
Oh. Well, that's the thing. It was still early on in my career, so I didn't really know any different. But yeah, he did make batting look easy. But that wasn't the only time that he did, you know, a few innings.
No, absolutely.
He did that.
It was a great series for you. You scored 107 in the next test, which forced a draw in the series. Must have been quite a crucial. Obviously, it's a crucial 100 there. Otherwise, you're losing that series.
Yeah, we're also saved by rain, if I remember rightly, in that test. So we it was on day 5. I think I got out, and then we had number 10 came out to bat. I think it was Ian O'Brien, and we only had Chris Martin to go. So I think we had about 2 hours to bat, and so if we lost 1 wicket, though, that was game over, because I don't think Chris Martin would have hung around for too long. But rain came in that day and saved us. So it was nice to save that test, but ultimately, India winning the series. But that was something I'll never forget. But it was also, playing against some of my idols growing up. As I said, Mark Wall was one of my favourite players, but to play against Dravid and Tendulkar, that was probably one of the highlights of my career, and grew up watching them. And, I think I caught Tendulkar out a couple of times. I actually felt bad, but it was nice to tell the grandkids that you played against one of the greatest players to ever play the game.
Well, absolutely. Here's a quick question for you: who would you choose to bat at number 11, Chris Martin or Courtney Walsh?
Courtney Walsh.
What a leave! The Courtney Walsh leave. It's a serious leave, Roscoe. You can't.
Yeah,
I would have given the same answer. Courtney Walsh's leave.
I still haven't come up with anyone who's actually worse than Chris Martin at number 11, unfortunately.
So you went on after that, and then you got put into captaincy. A kind of unusual circumstances. You're playing in an ODI series with the Aussies, and Daniel Vittori, I believe, pulled his neck muscle. So you were drafted in to captain the side. You took to it very well. You scored 70 and New Zealand won by 2 wickets. But what's your memory of getting that? I mean, it was only half an hour or so before the game, I believe.
Yeah, so I got a call that morning from, I think Mark Graybatch was the coach at the time, and he said, Vittori's woken up with a stiff neck, so prepare to captain.
Yeah.
But we wanted to give Vittori as much time as possible. So it wasn't until probably an hour before the game, and my first decision as captain was to either go with Nathan McCullum or Scott Styris. And coming from Napier, playing there a lot as a kid, it doesn't spin very often, so that was an easy decision as far as I was concerned. But it wasn't till the end of the game to make out that was the best decision that I made. Scott Styris got 40 off 30 balls to win the game right at the end, and hitting Bollinger for 4 and 6, where little things happen that you don't hear about, but that was one of the best decisions that I made, and because he was in and out of the team at the time, and from there he came, probably just needed a bit of a kick up the backside, and the team gave him that, but then he took his opportunity, and he finished his career after that, and was a crucial player for us in 2020s and one days, and saved us a lot, even at World Cups as well.
Yeah, no, great player. Reminds me of a wee bit, maybe not similar players, but kind of played a similar role to like a Craig McMillan, who just didn't quite expect him to be that good, but he would come out and just. I mean, Craig McMillan's a perfect example. Sometimes you would think this guy's going to get out pretty quickly, and then his famous 100 against the Aussies. I mean, what a clean striker of a cricket ball he is.
Yeah, and they're both bowl medium pace. Or Scott was actually a lot quicker than he sort of just came in. Chubby Scott, I'd like to call him, and just come in and he could bowl a heavy delivery. And the thing about Scott is when he did bowl a fast delivery and it came up on the scoreboard how fast it was, he would tell everybody. That is for sure. You served as captain, and you captained New Zealand in all forms of the game. It must be a real proud thing for you as a person, for your family, that this 5-year-old that picked up the bat with a dream went on to captain his country in every single format. Yeah, it was something that probably came a lot quicker than I was expecting. Was I ready? I don't think you're ever fully ready, but I really enjoyed it. I think it probably brought the best out of me and made that, I guess, raw player that went out and sort of just wanted to play, I probably learned to play the situation and be a lot more responsible in the way I went about my cricket as captain. But no, I have, obviously there's a few low points, but probably one of the highs as captain was winning the first time a New Zealand team winning a Test match in Australia, I think, in over 25 odd years. And as you go back to a conversation at the start, I think Australia is a team that obviously one of the greatest teams consistently, but at the same time tough to beat at home. And
absolutely,
it was nice for little old New Zealand to go over there and beat them on their home turf, and especially, it's nice to beat them in one-day cricket or 2020, but it's extra special to beat them in Test match cricket.
Well, I'm going to put this out there. Whenever the Kiwis play the Aussies, I always root for the Kiwis. I love to see but it's now coming to the point where you guys have actually started bringing in some bowlers that you maybe never had in the 90s. You look at the Kiwi attack now. There's some prop boys bowling some serious gas in there, and I think it shows in recent World Cups as well, where you guys are now making the final. New Zealand were always famous for making the semi-final, and I think it was always growing up. I thought your batting was great, but the bowling just didn't quite have the firepower of the other teams. Would you say you're quite comfortable now with going up against anybody, that you've got just as as good bowlers as they do?
Yeah, I think probably started, in my career, started with Shane Bond, I think.
Yeah.
He came on and he just gave us that impetus that we always faced as a opposition team facing, South Africa, England, Australia, India at times. Their fast bowlers bowling 145 plus, but we would always struggle to do that. Whether that was our conditions, knowing that someone could just come in and bowl 125, 130, make a career out of bowling on our green dibbly-dobbly wickets. But now, the Bolt, Southey, Wagner, Ferguson, we've got a good crop of fast bowling. And I think it's not only the big boys that have made us a better team. I think it's been our depth that when one of them has got injured, the next player to come in, and Matt Henry, Adam Milne, I could go, the list goes on, Mitch McClenaghan, all these guys have come in and succeeded straight away, and competition for spots has been fantastic, and I think that's probably been a big part of our success over the last 10 years.
Yeah, no, absolutely. You broke my heart, mate. 2011 World Cup. You shouldn't have really got the opportunity to break our hearts, because Cameron Akmal should have caught you, if I remember correctly. But you scored a fantastic 131 versus Pakistan. You were dropped. I think it was Shoaib Akhtar. Many say that Shoaib Akhtar didn't get to play the semi-final because he got spanked by you in that game. Whereas his argument always was, if the catch got taken, I wouldn't have went for that. But you took to your trademark over mid-wicket, and you smashed it on that day. Is that a knock you remember fondly?
Yeah, well, it was my birthday, and I think for me it was a good innings because, a lucky innings, I suppose, because I hadn't scored any runs for a long period of time. I had scored 50s, 60s, 70s, but I hadn't got 100 for a while, and I think I was starting to get a bit frustrated with myself and not being as consistent or getting those runs that I would have liked. And getting dropped first ball on my birthday and going for 4 in between Yunus Khan and Cameron Akmal, and I think I hit the next ball behind point for 4, and then nicked the next ball straight to Cameron Akmal, and he's just dropped the soda. So I had to make them pay, and it's definitely one of my more famous innings because the Pakistan fans come up to me and say they remember that innings and they'll never forget it.
We really do.
And then the Indian fans come up to me and say, "Oh, we loved it when you smacked Pakistan all over the place." So that's the innings that people talk about the most in terms of Indian and Pakistani fans. But Cameron Akmal, and once again, every birthday since I get Instagram and Twitter messages saying "Happy birthday" from Cameron Akmal. So.
Poor Cameron.
Social media can be.
It's a drop that lives on. It does. It lives on in every Pakistani's heart. It lives on, like you say, in every Indian's heart as well, from another point of view. But look, it doesn't say that in the scorebook. It says 131, and you went on to play. You went on to play one of the great ODI innings. You then also went on and scored your fastest century, and again to do it against the Australians, 81 ball century. You know, you like the Aussies, Roscoe. You like them.
Oh, I don't. You never want to get too carried away, but no, that was a. If I remember, I think I got dropped a couple of times that day too. A couple of easy ones, but
I didn't know about that, mate. You didn't need to mention that. I didn't know about that.
Yeah, it was so. But once again, I think once I got dropped a couple of times, I just played with a bit of freedom, and surprising how when you have a bit of luck and a bit of freedom that you can some of the shots that I played that day I wouldn't have played if I hadn't got dropped. I don't think so. It's just surprising how your career can take different paths and getting dropped or. Once again, I think I nicked one in between Watson and Ponting at first and second slip, and they just left it. So technically, that wasn't a drop, even though it was probably Ponting's catch. But no, it's that seems like a long time ago now. Yeah, it's probably is that like 10 years ago?
It's long. It's a fair while ago. We're getting closer to the 2020, 2013-14 series. You scored centuries in all 3 Test matches versus the West Indies, including your first double century. What a series! You were seeing it all right during that series.
Yeah, it was one of the first times I'd been given a break, actually. We'd had quite a busy winter program, and they gave us a little go away and have a break. And I worked with Grant Bradburn for a couple of weeks, and it was just nice to. Quite often, you tweak your game at trainings. Where here there was no games to train for, so I could work on my technique and groove it for a good 2 or 3 weeks. Where I don't often get that, so I put a lot down to that and my practice leading into that. But yeah, once again, I think it was just a good series, and once again, it was nice to get my first double century and knock a goal, I guess, tick a goal off along the way.
It's funny you mentioned Grant Bradburn there. We know well over these parts as well. He famously coached us to a great victory against the English not too long ago. Is he as good as what it seemed when he was in Scotland? He seems like a very smart man.
Yeah, no, he was very good, and he's gone on to obviously do. I can remember watching that game too. It was a fantastic game. I think I was at Sussex, I think, at the time. It was a great victory. But no, he's gone on. I think he was very close to getting the New Zealand job not so long ago, and obviously had some success with the Pakistan team at the moment with as their fielding coach not so long ago. So no, he was been great for us, and I think he's had a big influence on a lot of the Northern Districts players, where he was the first class coach for quite a few years.
Yep, cool. Australia again, 2015. Some say, you've mentioned a few times earlier that you've probably batted probably one of the best in some of the innings that we've already mentioned. But you score a 290 against the Aussies in a Test match. I remember it. I watched pretty much the whole innings. You broke all sorts of records in that knock as well. Highest NZ player score in away Test matches. You reached, I believe, 5,000 runs, the fastest to get there from New Zealand. What did you have for your breakfast that day? Plenty of water, I reckon.
Yeah, well, it was my first series back after I got hit in the box and had to have an operation in Zimbabwe. Sodi. So that was an interesting operation to have overseas, and I'm sure, as every cricketer knows, getting hit in the box is not a pleasant experience. No. But having Mitchell Johnson steaming in and aiming it in that region, the first test I really struggled, was the first time that I noticed that I wasn't really picking the ball up that well. So I went and saw an eye specialist, and they gave me some drops and said, you're going to probably need an operation on your eye in the next 12 months to remove a pterygium. So I got it done. I got some eye drops, and whether it worked or not, it just gave me a sense of I probably just a placebo to feel that I was seeing the ball better. And one thing I do remember about that, it was 41 degrees nearly every day. But one of the proudest moments was not only to be the first Kiwi to get 200, but was to bat a day for the first time in my career. I never thought I'd be able to do that. But to tick that off and to bat a whole day, and that heat against that bowling lineup, something I suppose I'll look back on and be proud of.
So is it just to get that many runs? I mean, there's not many that reach 290, 300 plus. There's only a few that have done it in the history of the game. How did you when you got to 100? Were you going in 50s, or was it the latter part of your innings just on momentum? What was going through your head? Were you really believing that you were going to go on to score that many runs?
No, not at all. I think as I said, I struggled in the last test. We'd been in the field the whole time, and they got 560. So, we were far behind the game. We were a long way behind the game. And I was 26 overnight. So the next day, it was just all our plan was to try and keep Australia out there as long as possible. If we can keep them out there till at least the last session and avoid the follow on, then we're a chance. And I think probably because Australia had got 550, we always knew we were that far behind the game that every run was crucial to try and get as close to them. Where by the end of it, we got ourselves in a position to maybe even win the test match, because I think we ended up getting 100 runs ahead of them, and putting pressure back on them from a pretty dire situation, being two for not many, to being able to put the pressure back on them. And I think because the game situation dictated that was probably the focus more so than the runs in itself.
I think in that, we talked about records there. I think you and Kane might have broke a partnership record in that one as well. Yeah,
I think we bet we had a Sri Lankan record. I think we got 270 odd in Sri Lanka, and then I think we got 270 odd, 279 or something that day.
Yeah, it's not bad going. You must have good chat with each other in the middle.
Oh well, there's not a lot going. Kane doesn't like to say too much.
Just a little fist pump. Just keep going, mate. Yeah, doing a bit. That's about it.
Just checking in. Kane knows what he's doing.
Yeah, good to hear. South Africa, 2017, 17th ODI century, taking over the great Nathan Astle, who had 16. Great ODI player for New Zealand. Again, another very proud moment.
Yeah, I was a little bit embarrassed that day because I did it in Christchurch, but yeah, he was a guy I looked up to, and as a kid growing up in New Zealand, and it was a little bit, I suppose, records that had been there to break them, but it was nice to get there, but at the same time, to take it off someone that you admired was a little bit, a little bit different and a little bit. It's hard to find a word for it, but at the same time, I think it was my first ODI 100 against South Africa too. So it was nice to be able to tick that off as well.
And the same, you were the quickest batsman to 6,000 ODI runs in New Zealand. I mean, these are serious records now. You are now classified. You've not retired yet. There's still a good few years left yet. But you're already in legendary status with the records you're knocking off. Do you think these will be something you look back on, or you don't think about it too much just now?
I think my mentor Martin Crowe, he'd been my mentor since 2006, and what he installed in me was to set goals and try and beat records. and set the bar high for guys to come in and try and, I guess, beat them in time. Records are meant to be broken, and I think with Kane coming along, Kane's going to beat all the records that I come up with. And, but at the same time, it's making Kane, beat them and set the bar for the next guy to come in and hopefully beat in time. And if that can help, then all bodes well for New Zealand cricket going forward in the future.
Yeah, I mean, you're both fantastic role models for the next generation coming through. I'm sure there's already plenty of lads coming through that want to be the next Ross Taylor, the next Kane Robinson. You had the likes of Martin Crowe to look up to. Stephen Fleming would have been, these kind of guys. You need these people to set the benchmark. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see how many you go on to get, and then just sit back and see how long it takes Kane to come up close to it, because he's obviously he's ticking up well. You're also the 6th player in history to score ODI centuries against all Test playing nations, and you're the first from New Zealand. Again, it comes back to something I said earlier, that a lot of players, you look at their record and it shows they might be playing in, I don't know, Australia at the time or South Africa, and they'll say, oh, this player particularly struggles when he's playing against South Africa, he scores loads of runs against this country or that country. But again, to score an ODI century against every Test playing nation, which would have included fast bowlers, great spin talent, is that something you, again, were consciously always thinking about, that I need to find a way to score runs against every single nation and every single condition?
Yeah, I mean, especially when you come over here, you play in the different leagues, and that's quite often a question that young players will ask me. How do you play in different conditions? And I guess that's a challenge of an international player, is you always know your home conditions very well, and I'm sure 80-90% of cricketers succeed in their own conditions, but it's a testament that if you can score runs overseas and score that consistently, and I probably still would like to score a lot more runs overseas, but it's nice to test yourself out in different conditions. But at the same time, as your career and your technique and your experience grows, that you learn to bat in these different conditions, because how you bat in even India is going to be different to how you bat in Bangladesh. But until you get into those situations and fail, I suppose, you learn for next time.
Yeah, no, it's wise words for youngsters coming through. England 2018, another century. Mate, honestly, when I was looking through this, I was just like, this, Roscoe, man, century after century after century. I want to set you some targets at the end of this podcast. I think you should go on to score like another. I think a goal should be another 10 centuries for you in all formats. I think it's doable before you hang the boots up. But you were also, again, the third New Zealand cricketer to score 7,000 runs in the ODI format. Again, it's just quality. The fact that I've not touched on T20 too much. I'm going to touch on it at the end. But I mean, you're successful in T20 cricket as well. Obviously, you don't have quite enough time to be banging centuries regularly. But the fact that you've stayed in such a long career and scored consistently in ODIs and Test cricket, it must be something that just kind of makes you feel like I'm a true batsman. If you score Test runs, you're a true batsman, and you seem to be able to just jump from each format to format and still perform.
Yeah, I think. And what I've said to the coach, I think it does help when you actually play all the formats. I think you stay in the setup. Your trainings are very specific, and you're getting quality bowlers bowling at you. Where even if you dropped out of one of the formats, say you didn't play 2020s, you have to go back and play domestic cricket where the resources aren't as much as the international setup. You can't have nets for an hour and a half. Sometimes you're only dealing with throwdowns. So it definitely, as far as I'm concerned, I feel like playing international cricket has definitely helped out, and it's become easier the more you play to get used to it. Where at the start of my career, to play a Test match and then a one-dayer the following week was quite tough, or vice versa. Play a one-dayer and then a Test match cricket 4 days. Go from a 2020 mindset to a Test mindset became quite tough, and I think it still is quite tough. Where I think my record in the second test of a Test series is always better than my first. So maybe I'm a slow learner, but it's probably a bit of both. And in terms of learning to deal with it quickly. But you know, it is tough to change between formats.
Here's a quick question for you. You're obviously a really successful T20 franchise cricketer. I mean, you've been playing in the IPL now for 10 years. You're obviously sitting in the lovely Caribbean right now, about to start in a tournament out there. But what I love about you as a cricketer is you've never left your roots, and you know, Test cricket even to this day seems like it's very important to you. You know, it's still from my point of view, the best form of cricket is Test cricket. What's your view on that? Do you think there's a fine line between T20 cricket and Test cricket? Because I think we have been starved a bit of seeing some of the best players from all the countries playing in Test cricket. Because I'm not going to name any, but because of T20 franchise cricket.
Yeah, no, I think it's understandable too. I feel, especially for a bowler, I feel, you know, it's to bowl in Test cricket is very tough on the body, and if you can retire from Test cricket and give yourself an extra 2 or 3 years of franchise cricket to set yourself up for after cricket, then you're not going to have any complaints from me. Yeah. So I think, you know, in terms of ICC and home boards, it's probably easier with the countries that get paid a lot of money, where, you know, some of the boards that don't pay their players as well, or is not as financially wealthy as some of the others. You know, they're the players who have to supplement their income and play in the franchise leagues. But no, these franchise leagues are great fun to play in, and it's not about just coming over here and having a whack. It's about doing well for your team and learning as well. You know, you learn to play in these different conditions. You're picking brains of some of the great players in the countries that you're playing in, and giving yourself knowledge for when you do go back to these parts of the world. But here I am in Trinidad in isolation. Got 4 more days to go. But I look forward to playing some 2020 cricket and playing some cricket in general, because it has been a while, and I'm sure the world will be looking forward to watching some 2020 cricket as well.
Absolutely.
As I've seen, I've watched the Test matches, England against West Indies and Pakistan, but it's been a while since anyone's seen any white ball Test match cricket.
I think we're all looking forward to seeing some T20 action. 2019 World Cup. It's kind of a bittersweet, this one for you. The last 2 World Cups have been a bit of a bittersweet for the Kiwis. You've kind of become the South Africa always get knocked out in the semi-finals. That used to happen to you boys, but you've mastered it now, how to get to the final. But unfortunately, the last couple of finals, look, you were bloody unlucky at Lords. I mean, I had you bankered in that you'd won that game. What's your? I mean, how do you still wake up in the middle of the night sometimes and say, bloody hell, how do we not get over the line there? I know the other final against the Aussies, unfortunately, didn't quite go to plan. Brendan McCullum was having a great World Cup and got out early to Mitchell Stark, and that meant, you know, you were up against it a little bit. But this one in England, you must have thought we're going to win this one.
Yeah, I think we probably played our final against South Africa in the 2015. You know, we played all our games in New Zealand, and then to fly over to Australia, different time zone, you know, it's just, I guess, it's strange. And we were completely outplayed and that. But then I think we got a lot of, we learned a lot about ourselves as a team from losing that final, and I think that put us in good stead for the final. That, you know, we had been to the final. We knew the pressures that came with it. There was still probably 5 or 6 guys who had played in the final in 2015. So I don't think we were overawed by that. But, you know, it's always tough when you play the home nation in the final in their own conditions. But I think the big thing about that game was, you know, winning the toss and just putting a score on the board. And I think we did that. We're probably still, I thought, probably 5 or 10 short in that. Would have liked to have got to 250. But, you know, at the end of the day, there was so many moments during that final. It could have gone either way. You know, it was, you know, probably took me about a week to get my sleeping patterns right. After that, some guys a lot longer, and some guys are probably still holding on to it. You know, over a year past, but no, I think I've just been fortunate enough to play in 2 World Cup finals. You know, as an MCC young cricketer, you know, if I'd played 5 Test matches, I probably would have been satisfied. But to have gone on and played 2 World Cup finals in front of 90,000 people at the MCG, and that's against England in England at the home of cricket, to take it to a super over and, you know, obviously
and lose by this much. I don't want to say it, but literally that much.
Well, it was a draw, wasn't it? But no, that's
yeah. No, I've got. Yeah, no. You know, that I don't. My thoughts exactly. But, I did think it was a draw, but you know, it is what it is. But what do you think? Can we see Ross Taylor in one more World Cup?
Yeah, I wouldn't say no. I think, if anything, COVID-19's prolonged my career a little bit. I mean, I find it easier to play cricket and stay in the groove. So that from a body point of view, it's definitely slowed down a little bit, but my mind is probably as fresh as ever. So, no, a lot of people tell me you're a long time retired, and as long as I'm still enjoying myself, still scoring runs and still being able to contribute and you know, deserve my spot in the team, then, you know, I always enjoy playing in India and, you know, if I can and the body can hold up, then I would think the 2023 World Cup in India wouldn't be a bad place to finish your career.
Yeah, no. Let's just pen that in now. Let's see you in 2023. We'd love to see Kiwis get over the line in the final. If Pakistan don't win it, I'd love to see your boys win it. I just want to.
What about Scotland?
You know, that's a good point. I guess I'm just accepting that we're not going to probably get to that stage of the World Cup. One day, maybe. You know, you never know. Things are changing. What's your thoughts on the World Cup? I know do you think we should see more teams in it? Do you enjoy playing against all these other countries? I personally obviously think a World Cup should be, if you watch the Football World Cup, the Rugby World Cup, you see so many small nations come up. And I think cricket is actually one now that the gaps, it is closing a little bit. I mean, it's just shown Ireland have beat England there, Scotland beat England, and, you know, there's been a couple of victories along the way by the associate countries. You know, would you like to see more of them play in the World Cup?
Yeah, I'm probably going to sit on the fence here a little bit, but I really enjoyed the 2019 World Cup because you played everybody. It felt really good that the best teams were able to play in the playoffs. There wasn't 2 sides of a draw and then it came through. I don't think you can say many World Cups that you can play everyone in the competition. So from that point of view, I would really like that format to stay. But then there's the other side of that where I feel like, you know, being able to add a few more teams wouldn't be bad. But then obviously with the time restraints, you wouldn't be able to do that. So I think that's where the 2020 World Cup becomes important. And, you know, we need 16, 18, 20 teams to be playing in that you know, I think, you know, one day cricket is the teams can play. I think those teams can beat the team in one-off games every now and then, but I think it's going to be easier for those teams going forward to upset the big boys a bit more often in a 2020 game than a one-day game, I think, going forward.
I agree. And then do you think maybe they could even have it like, depending on how well those teams do in the T20, decides on whether they get into the next World Cup, maybe take 2 of those teams, or because you can't take all of them, maybe you're saying it would become too many, but maybe at least if some of them make the group stages or something and they get through their group, they should be rewarded for that by going into a World Cup. There needs to be some sort of, I think, system that allows these countries to play in the 50 over World Cup as well.
Because I think there is a qualifying series, because I think West Indies, Sri Lanka and Bangladesh. Actually, I don't even know if Bangladesh played in it. I think it might have been Sri Lanka and West Indies. So I think there was a tight game there. I think that.
No, I think it was the West Indies. It was the West Indies got just over the line against Scotland. There was an LB. Scotland lost a wicket just before Duckworth lose. Otherwise, Scotland would have went to the World Cup. West Indies went through.
So I think from that point of view, there is still room for that to happen. And you know, if that had happened, then the West Indies wouldn't have been at the World Cup, and we might not have seen that amazing Brathwaite innings.
But then that's not I mean, that's something we don't want to see either. I don't think you don't want to see the men from the Caribbean not at a World Cup. So I think it's the fine line of how you're going to do this. I think you don't want to lose the big famous playing nations out of a World Cup, but you don't want to close the door on the smaller nations either who are striving to compete with the big boys. And I definitely think slightly the gap is, there's more chance of them beating a team now. Whereas in the 92 World Cup, 99 World Cup, when teams were just coming in, I think it was very unlikely that it was a bit of a mismatch. Just finishing your international career, as of June 2020, the boy that would have been happy playing 5 Test matches, you've now played 433 international matches, 101 Test matches, 232 ODIs, 100 T20s. You've scored 17,717 runs in international cricket, 7,239 in Tests, 8,569 in ODIs, and you're knocking on the door of 2,000. You've got about another, I know, right, but another 90 runs in T20s till you get off the line to 2,000. You've made 40 international centuries, 19 in Tests, and 21 in ODIs. Not too shabby, mate, from the guy that I met all those years ago at the MCC Young Cricketers.
Did you think that was going to happen?
If I'm being honest, seeing you play in the first, I'm going to be honest with you, mate, I can't lie. Seeing you play in the first maybe 6-7 games I played with you, I thought, this guy's not that good. I thought for a New Zealander he'd be a lot better. But then you scored 100 that I remember when you were whacking it against Bucks, and I thought, this guy looks, he's got something about him. But no, I didn't think Ross Taylor now. Back then,
neither did I.
We'd be sitting with those numbers, and I'm proud to say it. And I think there's still life in the old dog yet. Why not you push on for 50? I did say 10 more, so you're on 40. So if you could get 50 international centuries, mate, that would be unbelievable. Jeez. Like, phenomenal. Are you sat where you're sat now? You must be very satisfied with those numbers.
Yeah, I think I've still got a few goals that I would like to achieve in years to come, hopefully. But no, it would be nice to I don't know, maybe get to 10,000 one-day runs.
Yeah,
8, 9, I don't know, depending on Test cricket, depending on how long. I think as you get on, you're probably going to have to be smarter in the way you go about games and things like that, and pulling back a little bit to conserve the body. But no, there's definitely a lot of goals that I'd like to achieve, and it'd be nice at the end of it to give something for Kane to chase, and then once my career's finished, for Kane to set the benchmark for the next youngster who probably is probably at primary school now.
Exactly.
Can come and beat it in years to come.
In years to come. Listen, great career today. Long way to go. I've got 4 quick fire questions for you, and then if you could just stay online for 1 minute after we finish recording, that would be awesome. I know you've got to get to the gym. You've kindly given me some nice time in the afternoon. My first question to you is, who's the best bowler you've faced in your career?
I would say Murali or Malinga would be pretty two of the best.
Has that got a lot to do with the fact that they're both very unconventional?
I think so. If you have a unique action, it's just it just takes a little bit more to get used to.
Yeah. The best cricketer you've played against and with?
Ooh. What they've turned out to be, or at the peak of their powers?
Yeah, at the peak. I would say at the peak, or what they've turned out to be. I mean, whatever you wish.
I think the best player that I saw at the peak of their powers was probably Ponting.
Yeah.
I think Ponting at the start of my career, he used to score runs for fun against New Zealand, and he made batting look easy. But the best player that I played with, he probably wasn't at the peak of his powers when I played with him, but Virat Kohli at Bangalore, you knew that there was a talented player there, and what he's gone on to achieve over his career to date, and the records that he's going to break in years to come is going to be phenomenal. But he had the work ethic and the hunger back in Bangalore all those years ago, and yeah, he once again, a bit like Ponting, he scores runs for fun and makes batting look very, very easy most of the time.
Yeah. Advice for any young cricketers wanting to become professional cricketers, what would you say to them?
Don't sweat the small stuff. Continue to learn and just enjoy yourself. I think, give everything a go, and nothing better than playing a game of cricket for a living that you enjoy, and at the end of the day, it's not really a job. Yeah,
no, I think it's the best way. Don't put too much pressure on the shoulders. Just it's the love of the game. What does the future hold then for Ross Taylor? I mean, you've got, I reckon, you're same age as me, so you might have turned already. You're 36 now.
36, yeah.
Yeah, so 36 now. Where do you see yourself? Where do you see yourself playing on till? Well, 2023 is a great benchmark for you to set.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you got to. Is it realistic? I hope so. But 2023, I think, is a goal. It's a little bit far fetched, but if you can, as I said, every year as you get a bit older. I guess I've never wanted to make a decision about retirement on emotion, one bad series or things like that. But, hopefully I can continue to improve and want to improve. And I think if you can do that, then all bodes well for wanting to continue to play this game of cricket.
Do you see yourself transitioning and staying in the game and transitioning into coaching, or is Ross Taylor wanting to do something totally different?
Yeah, I think, as I've got older, I've looked into a lot of different things, and the game of cricket's been really good to me, and I don't think the game of cricket would be lost completely, but at the same time, it has been my life for close on 20 years, and it'd be nice to go on and do something different. But but at the same time, I don't think I'll be too far away in whatever capacity.
Look, I just want to say, obviously stay on the line for 1 minute afterwards, but I just want to say, it's been what, 20, 50, 17, 18 years since played with you at Lords of the MCC Young Cricketers. It's phenomenal what you've achieved in your career, and I hope you go on to do lots more. Best of luck in the upcoming tournament that you're about to partake in the Caribbean. Keep a safe social distance at all times. Look after yourself, stay healthy, keep the face mask on. I'm sure they're quite don't know how strict they are out there. I know in some other sports it's like that. Have you got it there in the background?
Right, we've got boxes of them, mate. Boxes
of them. Mate, every time I leave the house to go to the shop, I've only got one. I could do with you posting me one of them, because I leave it in the house, and then I get to the shop and the guy reminds me, listen mate, you're not coming in. It's like getting to a nightclub when you were 16, trying to get into a nightclub when you're 2 years too young.
You need to leave a few on the car then.
That's the plan moving forward. Or I might just give you my postal address when we get off, and you can send me one of those boxes over. But thank you very much, mate. Greatly appreciated.
Hey, thanks for having me, mate.